If you're looking for an easy life, more than likely, it's going to be pretty mediocre. Women do not need to get stuck inside the box of rules that society has built for us. So many of us don't even sit back to realize the choices and the risks and the changes that we make in order to be able to stand in our power. So we always have this fight between, I used to only think it was our head and our heart, but it really is our head and our gut. Yes, we feel it in our heart, but our gut is really, it's our navigation system. It's really what tells us what is right for us. But so many times we get stuck in our head about what it is that people expect us to do, behave, and live the life that we're supposed to be living based on what society thinks we should be doing. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fearlessly Authentic. I'm your host, Jody Harrison Bauer, and I'm always so happy to be here and to have you here with me. I shared this the last time I did a show that we are now a top 5 globally ranked podcast, and that is because of you, because you have been sharing this and you've been listening and subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so. Rate, review, and subscribe. And that's what has gotten us here after 4.5 years. I can't believe I've been doing this for so long. I think we're up to like 235 episodes. So thank you so much for your support and for sharing it. And you know, when I started the show and named it Fearlessly Authentic, it was because there had been so many points in my life that I had taken risks to overcome fear. And I remember in my early 40s, after my divorce, wondering what was next for me, and knowing that I had an opportunity here to create a new future for myself, because I felt very stuck in that relationship. And I wanted my daughters to see me as a powerful and empowering woman, and empowering them and making a difference in the world, having an impact. And getting divorced when none of my friends were divorced was a very hard decision for me. And it took me many years to really stand in my truth and make that big decision. And I know you have, if you are a regular listener to the show, you have heard me tell this story. And for those of you who are new listeners today, I'll give you a little bit about it. But I got divorced when I was 42, and I just felt like I was not living my most fearlessly authentic life. And I didn't really even understood what being fearless and being authentic meant. I had always done things on my own time, and being a leader in the community just came very natural to me. Being a trainer was a very natural thing for me because I do like to lead, but I also love to collaborate. So I think those things are really important for you to understand also, that we can be good leaders, but good leaders also are self-aware enough to know that collaboration is a very powerful tool as well. So I didn't understand the fearlessly authentic until all of these years later, when I had been taking risks on myself. I started competing at 47 years old. I won 2 world consecutive shows. I opened up a fitness studio at 50. Nowadays, I sound so old. I'm 63. And nowadays, if you hear a woman starting a business at 50, you think, of course, not a problem. But when I did it in 2010, you know, that was still unheard of. We didn't have social media. We weren't talking to women all over the world. We were kind of in our own world. Like, we didn't have those connections like we have now. Now we connect to people globally. And back in 2009, 2010, I wasn't even on Facebook. There was no Instagram. There was no way to connect, very little ways to connect. And all of a sudden, all of social media opened up, and we were able to connect more. And that's when I started becoming even more and more and more self-aware of the impact I was making on women as I was training them, and knowing that the training that I was doing with them was much more than getting them physically fit. It was getting them mentally fit. And I continued to compete for 10 years. And my last show, I was 55 years old, and I placed second in a world show. And I always bring this up. I lost to a tall blonde who was 45 years old. So she was 10 years younger than me. So I felt like, I represented the short girls because we weren't separated by height. And so all of these things happened, and then Sports Illustrated happened, where I made global news as the oldest person to ever try out. I was competing against 10,000 women, more than half my age, and I made it to the top 60, was on Good Morning America, Inside Edition, the cover of the New York Post. And again, it was that realization of, wow, we can really make an impact now. We have the ability to reach so many people. And I never even thought that I was taking risks all this time. I was becoming more self-aware, but I didn't realize that what I was doing was anything great until Sports Illustrated happened. And that was my moment where I thought, wow, Jody, what you're doing, that was at 58, what you are doing is having a huge impact. And it's because I guess you are fearlessly authentic. And I think so many of us don't even sit back to realize the choices and the risks and the changes that we make in order to be able to stand in our power. There are many people out there who don't want to see us stand in our power. There are many people in our lives that don't want to see us succeed. And you have to get rid of all of the noise in your life, and you have to sit very quietly with your feelings, most importantly, your gut intuition. So we always have this fight between our head. I used to only think it was our head and our heart, but it really is our head and our gut. Yes, we feel it in our heart, but our gut is really, it's our navigation system. It's really what tells us what is right for us. But so many times we get stuck in our head about what it is that people expect us to do, behave, and live the life that we're supposed to be living based on what society thinks we should be doing. So when I tried out to be in Sports Illustrated Swim Issue, my platform was, and they gave us 1 minute to pitch our platform, was that women do not need to get stuck inside the box of rules that society has built for us. When a woman hits a certain age, and that certain age is usually post-menopause, we're considered irrelevant, at least back then. Even when I was 58 and talking a little bit about menopause, because when I was going through it, I was 50, I was opening up my own business, I was winning world shows. Nobody was talking about menopause. Nobody was talking, there was a stigma. It was the ick. It was an ick stigma. And now, because of the generation younger than me, the Gen X generation, these women are the first women who have the platform of social media to bring the attention to menopause. And I would like to bring the attention to being a postmenopausal woman. So when we hit different times in our life, so back when I was 58, 5 years ago, a woman my age wasn't supposed to try out for Sports Illustrated Swim. There was one other woman who was considered the old lady, and she was 5 years younger than me. And they wanted somebody who looked the part. So when their audience bought the magazine, they would say, this is the older woman. Now the older woman is being held up, and I love it. We're not being put out to pasture. And I think the old way of thinking for women my age, and even some women younger than me, think that they need to still live inside that box that society has built for them, has created for them. but they don't have to do anything. And I'm here to tell you that you do not need to live by anyone's rules, not by society, not by your friends, not by your family, not by your significant other, including your children. Okay. Because my daughters were not supportive of me competing. And it was the first time, well, getting divorced was the first time I went against the rules because I was just trying to make everybody happy and doing the right thing all the time. And my daughters were like, oh, mommy, you're going to look gross. You're going to look like a man. And I said, no, I'm not. And then they became very proud of me. But if I listened to them, I wouldn't have taken the risk. So I'm here to tell you, do not listen to other people. Opinions are like a-holes. Everybody's got one and everybody's going to give it to you. It is your choice to stand in your truth and be strong and not listen to anybody else's advice. Trust your gut. I'm going to talk to you for a second because I have also brought this up in the past. I was on a retreat in BVI, Ariel and BVI, British Virgin Islands. I was there in June and it was called Presence. And if you need any information about it, I would love to share it with you. And we talked a lot about the difference between intuition and fear, right? So as I was living my life up until I was 42 years old, I was not living in fear, but I was living the way everybody wanted me to live until I felt unhappy. And he was a great dad. I've said that 100 times on this show. And he's still a wonderful father to my daughters. But it was fear that stopped me from speaking up. It was fear of what is life going to be like if I leave this relationship. But I was so unhappy that I had to trust my intuition, but it took years for me to get there. And I just want you to understand, listen to this, a few of these things that I'm going to mention to you. This is what fear sounds like. Fear sounds loud, urgent, and sudden. It feels constricting. It feels like what you should do. So fear and ego are a little closely related. If I leave this relationship, what are people going to think of me? If I leave this relationship, how am I going to survive? So there's the fear and the ego. Fear or ego keeps you surviving, fight or flight, right? It needs control. Decisions feel forced. And this is when we have that battle of head and gut. Another reason why keeping your gut healthy is very important. When you feel like you are forcing a decision, you are going to feel it in your gut. And I feel it now as I'm talking about it. If you have that feeling right now, whatever you're going through, and maybe life is just wonderful for you right now, and I am so happy for you. But if you feel like I need to make a decision and it feels really forced, that means you're following your head and not your gut. Trust me, from somebody who has gone through it many, many times, even to the point of, I remember when I built my last studio in 2017, there was a woman who worked for me and she was a great instructor. She had a wonderful following, but she was a bully and she bullied everybody, me especially. Now, as a business owner, I wasn't going to tolerate that. But also as a business owner, I had to be very careful about towing the line. So when I built the new studio and she came in, I had a talk with her and I told her that the name of my business, I was still known as Jody Fit, for those of you who know me from my past. And I told her that it was no longer a good fit. Now, I was scared to do that, but I was standing in my truth and I was being fearlessly authentic. My head told me, Jody, don't get rid of her. She's got a lot of following. She's brought in a lot of new members. She's a great instructor. But my gut told me, get her the hell out of the studio before I start opening it. It was about 2 days from opening. So if you have that feeling where the decisions seem to be forced, I urge you to follow your intuition. If it feels heavy, that's ego or fear. If it follows the pressure and if it feels limiting. So if I kept this woman on, it would be limiting the way I was navigating my business because she was bullying everybody and I knew that it was becoming a toxic situation. So I went with my gut, and it was hard because normally when we go with our gut, there's some fear because we're thinking ego, so ego, fear. But when we follow our gut, it does feel scary, but the outcome is always what's best for us in the long run. Always, always. When I was so afraid to leave my marriage, and it was scary, and there were a lot of changes I had to make, and ones that I wasn't even aware of, it was friggin' scary, but I did it anyway. So if you have that feeling of this is friggin' scary, but I'm going to do it anyway because I know that it's the best decision for me, do it. Your gut is always going to lead you in the right direction, but nobody said change is easy. If you're looking for an easy life, more than likely, it's going to be pretty mediocre if you're just set in your ways. If you want to live life to the fullest, you've got to take some chances on yourself and you've got to follow your gut. We're going to take a quick break. I'll be back in a few minutes.
You are listening to Fearlessly Authentic with Jody Harrison Bauer. We'd love to hear from you with any questions or comments you may have. Send an email to info@jodyharrisonbauer.com. That's info@jodyharrisonbauer.com. Now, back to Fearlessly Authentic.
Welcome back, everybody. Let's get moving on here where I wanted to talk about, but I did want to finish up with the fear and ego versus intuition, because it is something that really resonated with me while I was at the retreat. And it's something that I have been talking about a lot since the retreat, because I realized that if you want to accomplish things in life, if you want the fullest life in the world, and you are tired of being mediocre, you are tired of settling, you are tired of doing things that other people want you to do or be that, then you need to follow your intuition. And I'm telling you, your life will open up. Intuition should feel like love. It's an inner knowing. It's for your highest good. It helps you thrive. You light up when you think about it. It feels like expansion of your world. Decisions flow when you're following your intuition. It feels light. It doesn't feel heavy. You take inspired action, intentional and inspired action, and intuition feels empowering. By the way, this show is on the empowerment channel of Voice America, FYI. So this has all led me to what the meat and potatoes of what I want to talk about today. And it's about, is it time for a change for you? And how do you know when to trust your intuition and move on? So I shared a little bit about trusting my intuition after 17 years of marriage and getting divorced. One of the hardest decisions I've ever made. And it's been a long time. I've been divorced for like 22 years or something like that. So how do you know when you really should be listening to your intuition and moving on? Because the life that you're living right now may not be the life that you want to live. So here's my little story. I have been talking about moving to Miami for about, especially since 2020, but even going back to when my youngest daughter, who's now 31, when she applied to college, which was 2011, I said to her, Lexi, apply to University of Miami and I'll move down there. Now, I had just opened up my studio, but I had signed for a 3-year lease. So I figured, well, I could still like go back and forth. So she's like, it's too hot there. I don't want to go there. She ended up going to University of Wisconsin-Madison, but the total opposite of Miami. But I remember wanting to leave Connecticut. I just wanted to leave. My sisters didn't live there. I had a boyfriend, but but my mom was still here, and both of my sisters lived out of state. So there was a little bit of guilt there because my dad had just passed away, but I can't blame it on anybody else except I was freaking scared. And I wanted to keep the home, even though wasn't the home that they grew up in, but I wanted to keep that consistent. At the time, their dad still lived in Connecticut. I didn't want the girls to feel displaced. So again, yes, I'm a mommy first and foremost. So I was very concerned that if Lexi didn't go to school in Miami and my other daughter lived in New York, that I would be the only one in Florida and nobody else would be here. Well, now it's their dad and my oldest daughter live in this area. So I have been wanting to come down here forever and ever and ever. I'm done with the cold. I have threatened my husband to come down here, and he's like, go, I'll come down with you, find a place, blah, blah, blah. And finally, I've been talking about it, talking about it, talking about it. Well, let me tell you guys, I came down here about 2 weeks ago to spend time with my oldest daughter. And I came back to Connecticut and I said, I'm the fuck out of here. I'm just the fuck out of here. I don't want to live in Connecticut anymore. I don't want to go through another winter. I want to be in the warmth. I want to be where it's sexy and fun and people are full of life and people are out all the time. I don't want to be stuck in Connecticut. I grew up in Connecticut. I went to school in Boston, then came back to Connecticut to marry my ex-husband. And I've been there since then. And right now, my husband, my second husband, all of his work is in Connecticut. So I came back and I said to him, I'm out of here. I'm leaving. I can't stay here anymore. This is it. So I did something that I never ever thought I was going to do. And also the other thing about being in Connecticut, and this is not, I think Connecticut is a great place to raise your kids. The other thing about Connecticut was that I just felt that once I closed my studio in 2022, I needed to be someplace else. I needed to be someplace more lively. I didn't want to keep going to the same restaurants. I didn't want to, I felt like my creative flow wasn't happening. I felt stunted. Now, my husband's a doctor, so he's on autopilot with all the medical stuff. And I just said, I gotta go. I gotta go. I don't want to be here anymore. I love you, but I'm gonna go and come down when you're ready, or I'll come back up and visit. Whatever, you know what snowbirds do. So he's like, okay. So I grabbed the dog. She's right here. Grabbed the dog, grabbed my car, packed a bunch of things, and I was the hell out of there. I came back on Sunday and I left on Wednesday. And I've never done anything like that where I was just, but it had been in the working. So what I'm trying to say to you is that if you feel like your growth is being stunted, if you feel that you need to be around in a different environment to be more creative, to think more openly, and you feel stunted where you are or stagnant, then get out of there. Get out. So how do you know? So I drove to Florida. So my youngest daughter came with me. We drove and we left at the wrong time. We left at like 6:30 at night or something crazy like that. So we got stuck in a really bad rainstorm. And so we spent the first night in Philly. We didn't drive very far from Connecticut. And then from Philly, we drove to Fayetteville, North Carolina. And Kelly, I really wanted to come and visit you in where you live, but it was so far. I know a lot of people in North and South Carolina. I really want to stop there, but I had to just follow 95 all the way down. And I kept looking at my daughter and said, I can't believe I'm doing this. Like, if you told me that at 63 years old, I was going to get in my car and drive to Florida, and I drove because I wanted to have a car here and I needed to bring my pup, and she's, a 60-pound, 62-pound rescue. So we had such a good time. We talked and talked and talked. I mean, our friends told us, listen to a podcast. Well, we didn't stop talking. We just talked the whole time. We listened to like all different kinds of music. We stopped at some pretty shady areas, but we were okay. And then from Fayetteville, we went to Charleston, South Carolina. And was it Fayetteville? It was Fayetteville. Yeah, Fayetteville. I think that was in North Carolina. Then we stopped in Charleston. And then we were going to stop in Savannah. We were going to try to go all the way to Savannah, but we didn't do that. We stopped in Charleston. It was Friday night, and we said, let's stay overnight and let's go out for dinner and enjoy ourselves. So that's what we did. And then we were like, we're going to just power through. And when I say wait, I did 80 to 90%, 90% of the driving, but she was amazing company, and we found dog-friendly hotels, and we arrived in Miami at like 8:30 on Saturday. So we took our time, and it wasn't that bad. But my point is telling you this, that I did it at 63. So if you are 63 or whatever age you are, you can do this. You can do this. Your mental well-being is so important, and you need to do these things for yourself. So let's go into what are the signs for it's time to move to a new environment. Persistent feelings of unhappiness or restlessness. Research from the Journal of Positive Psychology 2019 shows that environments that fail to support emotional and psychological needs can lead to chronic stress and dissatisfaction. So what was happening to me was not really the emotional support. It was just I needed to be in a more thriving environment. I needed to be more stimulated. My husband works a lot. I didn't have the studio to go to anymore. I am connected to people on here, online, through the radio show and the podcast, but I needed to be with people that were doing a lot more things than what I had going on in Connecticut. So I was feeling restless, and I didn't feel like Connecticut, I'd outgrown Connecticut. Look, I was again 63 and I've been there my whole life. So lack of growth opportunities. Here's another one. Stagnation in personal professional life. So I did feel stagnated. I had, had a studio for 12, 13 years, and I was like, what's next? What's next? I need to network more. So I was always going to New York. Well, Miami is like New York. And quite frankly, I'd rather be in Miami than in New York. I love New York, but I think it's just gotten so chaotic. I don't want to go there anymore, unless it's for like a networking. But my other daughter lives in New York. So if you feel like you are stagnant at all in your growth, then you need to move on. You need to move on to something that is going to be more exciting for you. Again, stagnation in personal and professional life can signal the need for a change. The American Psychological Association found that being in environments where growth is limited can lead to decreased motivation and even cognitive decline. Now, as an aging woman, one of the things that is very, very important to me is the fact that my cognitive skills will be sharp. I don't want to have a decline. And the fact that I was in my home a lot and not really going out a lot. And again, like I said, my husband works a lot, so we weren't really traveling. And I was just leaving Connecticut a lot for motivation, for excitement. And I felt like I don't have a business here anymore. It's time to find someplace else to live and see what that's like. It was a little scary. Now, if your environment is negatively impacting your health, then a move is obviously best. If you're feeling right now, as we're talking, feeling isolated or disconnected, that can be harmful to your mental health. Now, did I feel isolated? No, but I noticed that there were times that I was isolating myself. I didn't realize it until I was doing it. And my daughters would be like, Mom, you're not going out. Mom, you're not doing this. You're not doing that. And I thought, ooh, this isn't good for me. This isn't good. Social isolation can be harmful to mental health. A study from social science and medicine found that strong social networks improve both mental and physical health, while isolation risks of depression, anxiety, and even mortality. And I've talked about this as to women who are growing older. So we're all getting older every single day. And it's really, really important that we socialize. So lack of socialization will literally kill us. It will depress us. It will and can kill us because it makes us mentally unwell, just as I just read. Isolation increases risk of depression, anxiety, and even mortality. So luckily, I have a lot of friends that, we would go out a lot. And so I was going out, or I would go and visit my daughters. And so I I really encourage you to get yourself out there and not isolate, because it really is harmful to us all. And once you feel like you're doing that, like, call a friend, go out for dinner. I have my wonderful friends there, and hopefully they will come down here, or I'll go back up there and visit them, where we would get together like once a month for dinners. If you feel like there's a decline in productivity and creativity, then it's probably time to make a move. A study in the Journal of Environmental Psychology highlighted that an inspiring environment can enhance creativity and productivity. If you're feeling uninspired or your productivity is declining, a change might be needed. I felt that way, especially after I had about 6 to 9 months to take in the fact and that I closed the studio, and what was next for me. And I love the fact, I was so grateful to have this podcast, because it was a way for me to be creative. It was a way for me to connect with other people. But just in the last 6 months, and I really think that the retreat that I went on was really helpful in helping me be present with what was going on in my life for me. We spent 2 days in silence, and I really got very clear with what I needed to make myself happy. And luckily, I have a very understanding husband who wants me to be happy. And so I did it. So again, if you feel like you're being uninspired or your productivity is declining, maybe you need to make a change. This is when your intuition comes into play, right? You're thinking, wait a minute, I know my gut is telling me that I need to change my environment. It's not good for me. It's not healthy for me. It's uninspiring for me. It's unmotivating for me. But what will people think? What will my life be like someplace else? Will I have a support group? What about friends? But we know that intuition is often a reflection of subconscious knowledge. A study from the British Journal of Psychology found that intuition, as we talked about before the break, is reliable, especially in areas where you have experience or familiarity. Trusting your intuition improves decision making. Combining tuition with rational thought leads to better, faster decisions. So when I came back, just to turn around 3 days later, I was trusting my gut. It was clear. Being with my daughter, being away from the situation, I came back and I said, nope, I can't stay here anymore. It's time to make a change. Intuitive decisions are linked to higher life satisfaction. A study in Frontiers in Psychology found that those who trust their instincts report greater happiness and personal growth. Again, and I did a TikTok on this a couple of years ago. If you're not happy with where you are right now, make a change. And the easiest, and I say that in quotations, air quotes, that it's easier said than done. But that's why I read to you what fear and ego feel like. If you forgot, then go back and listen. Fear and ego versus intuition. So as I prepared for today's show, after sharing my personal experience of driving down here from Connecticut, I thought, when do women typically make these big changes? It's usually midlife, 40s and 50s. So I got divorced in my 40s. I got remarried in my late 50s at 58. So those were big changes, right? I got divorced, I got remarried. It's usually a time for reassessment and new directions. A lot of women reevaluate their choices and consider moves that better align with their evolving values and goals. So whether you're leaving a job, leaving a relationship, leaving a state, leaving a country, it's because you're looking for better alignment. Does it align with my head, my heart, my gut? Does this feel good? Remember, intuition helps you thrive. and lights you up. Remember, as I use my lip gloss to make a point. Also, midlife, 40s or 50s, menopause. Most of us hit menopause, perimenopause, late 30s to mid 40s. And by the time we are in our 50s, we have gone through menopause and we are now in postmenopause. And maybe we're thinking about, well, how has my old life been? Well, it might have been really great for when I was raising my children, and it might have been really great because I had this incredible job, but I'm retired, or my kids, I'm an empty nester. For me, my children are in their 30s, and I had nothing keeping me in Connecticut anymore. I had an understanding husband who said, go, like, be happy. I want you to do your own thing, go. So, as a lot of women, I also did this poll on Instagram. I took a poll about how old women were when they filed for divorce, because in most divorces, the woman files like 60% more. It might even be higher. But those hormonal changes that we go through, starting with perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause, they make us sit back and and identify what's going on with ourselves and motivate us to make these changes in our life. And how do you recognize when it's time to make a change in your life? As I mentioned, I went on this retreat called Presence, 2 of the days we spent in silence, and I have never journaled so much in my entire life. So that environment encouraged me to self-reflect for 5 days. We were 2 days in silence. And it made me think about my life, what I accomplished, where do I want to be, what environment is going to make me happy, and how am I going to get there? I thought the getting there was the hardest part, but it wasn't. It took me 3 days to get here. Once I made that decision, and I don't know if you guys are like me, but it takes me a while. Like I'll be thinking about these things, and then suddenly, little by little, the ducks get in a row. Even though at the time we all feel that we need to have our ducks in a row in order to make change. But really, and I'm telling you this from experience, but really all you need to do is to take action. Take action for anything in your life, whether it's getting fit and healthy and changing the way you eat and work out, or it's in a relationship or your job or your environment. And for me, I didn't want to be in Connecticut anymore. And again, anybody who knows me has heard me talk about coming to Florida forever before the pandemic. Like I said, since 2011. Thought, well, my daughter's going to college. My other daughter lives in New York. I can just go to Florida, but I didn't have the balls to do it. I was scared. I came up with excuses. My daughters would have been fine coming to Florida when they wanted to visit me. Like, who was I kidding? It was an excuse. It was an excuse because I was scared and I didn't know how I would be judged, but I was mostly scared, if I'm being really, really honest with you. So think about this. Are you happy in your current environment? Do you feel connected and supported by your friends, your family, your coworkers? Are there opportunities for growth and health? Another reason I always said to my husband, I don't want to get old in the cold. Like there's a reason why people who are older come to Florida. It used to be when my mom was, in her time, it was like, she's like, Jody, I'm never going to go to Florida. That's where people die. And I'm like, no, this is where people live. This is where you live longer. And I'm using Florida. You may not like Florida, but I'm just saying the warmer weather. And quite honestly, I love the vibe here in Miami. Like it's just so cool and sexy. And there are just so many smart people doing things here. I just love it. So I want to remind you that self-awareness is the first step in recognizing the need for change. You may need a therapist to help guide you. You may need a life coach to support you and lead you, guide you. You may need a best friend, or you may just need to journal. The journaling, and let me tell you guys, I hate journaling, but I was forced to journal on this retreat. And I didn't want to go. I didn't want to spend the money on it. I was like, no, it's just going to be a lot of woo-woo stuff and I'm not going to get anything out of it. And I was just going to drop a lot of money. But I trusted a mentor of mine who said, your life will change. This will be life transforming. And so far it has been. And I'm going to be offering retreats also. We'll talk about that another time. Here are some steps that I want you to consider when you're thinking about making a move. First, visit the locations you would want to go to and trying out temporary places to live. So right now I'm in Miami, seeing if this is where I would like to quote unquote end up. And then combine your gut. What's your gut saying when you're going into that building? Or what's your gut saying when you're going to the coffee shop? What's important to you? And then combine your gut feelings with a rational analyzation to make a balanced decision, right? Which is what we like to do. But you've got to trust your gut, ladies and men. You've got to trust your gut. I want you to think about where you are right now in your life and connect to those deeper subconscious feelings and wisdom. Write your thoughts down. My therapist tells me that when I talk to her, she goes, write that down. You're not going to remember. Write that down, write that down, write that down. And most of the time I listen to her and I go back and I think, wow, I'm really glad that I wrote that down. Here's the bottom line to all of this. If you feel an internal nudge, I want you to listen to it. My internal nudge came to me when I came back home after thoroughly enjoying myself and feeling motivated and inspired and creative being down here. Doesn't mean I'm ever never coming back to Connecticut or going to New York or going in. I'm not going to like stay here or like never leave, but at least this is my first step in testing out a new environment. And obviously hoping my husband comes down here too when he's ready. But if you feel that internal nudge, it might be worth listening to. And I know that whenever anybody I know that's been super successful has made a change in their life has changed. Did you hear that? Whenever somebody decides to change their life or feels a need to change, their life changes because they took action. And that's something I've been talking about forever as a trainer, as a coach, that your body is not going to transform from where it is right now to fit and healthy until you take actions to eat differently, work out differently, change your lifestyle to different, to be healthier. And I know that in all the big moves that I've made in my life, whether it was getting divorced, finding a coach so I can compete in fitness shows, which was a dream of mine, but I wasn't allowed to do it when I was married, opening up my own studio, never owning my own business, but my gut told me, these ladies that you're training in this big box gym, Jody, do not want to be on display for other people to look at them. So you need to create an environment for them where they feel safe, where they can be themselves. And I knew that once I got them there, that things would just completely expand for them and for me. And it did. And there were multiple opportunities that came about. And their lives changed too, because they took a risk on coming to train with me. And all of these women, including myself, trusted their intuition. When I was involved in a network marketing company 10 years ago or something like that, I don't really remember how long it was. I remember being really nervous about starting it. And I was really encouraged by so many of the success stories. And once I took a big fat step into running that business like a business and not like a side hustle, my life changed. I became even more confident. I made a lot more money. And I was now combining my gym with proper nutrition. And my life changed. And my life changed again when I left a toxic relationship, even though I thought I loved him. And my life changed again when I met my husband. And my life changed again when my daughter told me to try out for Sports Illustrated Swim. And I told her I was done getting in a bikini and doing the whole bikini thing. But my life changed. And I didn't know how I was going to feel after I closed my studio, but it felt right. And it was time. I said I didn't want to be that 60-year-old woman training women. And I had reached my peak. And now it was time to reach women on a global level because I have a global audience now. And that was scary. And I didn't know what people were going to say about me. But I was done. And I trusted my gut and I was done. So 2023, a lot of 2023 was spent on what's next for me. And part of this big change for me, and hopefully for me to share with all of you, is that big changes are coming. Big, wonderful, creative, exciting changes are coming. And I don't want you to be scared to take them yourself. I'm 63 years old. I am looking forward to this amazing life in my 60s. I don't know what's to come, but I'm working my ass off here and I'm going to keep bringing you great podcasts. I'm going to keep bringing you great content on Instagram and on Facebook. And I love hearing from you. You inspire me. So I will keep you updated on this whirlwind, as my dog is looking at me, of this change that I've made. And I encourage you to follow your intuition. If you feel like a change is needed and it feels scary, I want you to do it anyway, because I want you to be the most fearlessly authentic version of you. Because if we are not being our most fearlessly authentic version, then what the heck are we doing here? Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.